Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadhari Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadhari Jaya Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadhari Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Bala Girivanadhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asatara Swatasisi Mother's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So today we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Adi Lila, 3rd chapter, text 79. Koṭi aśvamedha eka Krishna nāma sama. Ye kahe se pāṣaṇḍī daṇḍe tāre yama. Koṭi aśvamedha eka Krishna nāma sama. Ye kahe se pāṣaṇḍī daṇḍe tāre yama. Koṭi aśvamedha eka Krishna nāma sama. Ye kahe se pāṣaṇḍī daṇḍe tāre yama. Ye kahe se pāṣaṇḍī daṇḍe tāre yama. Koṭi aśvamedha eka Krishna nāma sama. Koṭi aśvamedha eka Krishna nāma sama. Ye kahe se pāṣaṇḍī daṇḍe tāre yama. Koṭi, 10 million. Aśvamedha, who are sacrifices. Eka, 1. Krishna, of Lord Kṛṣṇa. Nāma, the name. Sama, equal to. Yei, one who. Kahe, says, say, he. Pāṣaṇḍī, atheist. Daṇḍe, punishes. Tāre, him. Yama, Yamarāja. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One who says that 10 million aśvamedha sacrifices are equal to the chanting of the holy name of Lord Kṛṣṇa is undoubtedly an atheist. He is sure to be punished by Yamarāja. Purport. In the list of the 10 kinds of offenses in chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hare Kṛṣṇa, the 8th offense is dharma vrata tyage hutade sarva subha kriya samyam api pramādaḥ. One should never consider the chanting of the holy name of Godhead equal to pious activities like giving charity to brāhmaṇas or saintly persons, opening charitable educational institutions, distributing free food, and so on. The results of pious activities do not equal the results of chanting the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. The Vedic scripture says, Go koṭi dhanam grahane kagasya prayagangodaka kalpavasaha Jagya yutam meru swarna danam govinda kirtana samam satam sahai. Even if one distributes 10 million cows in charity during an eclipse of the sun, living at the confluence of the Ganges and Jamuna for millions of years, or gives a mountain of gold in sacrifice to the brāhmaṇas, he does not earn 1/100th part of the merit derived from chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. In other words, one who accepts the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa to be some kind of pious activity is completely misled. Of course it is pious, but the real fact is that Krishna and his name, being transcendental, are far above all mundane pious activity. Pious activity is on the material platform, but chanting of the holy name of Krishna is completely on the spiritual plane. Therefore, although pāṣaṇḍīs do not understand this, pious activity can never compare to the chanting of the holy name. Can repeat the translation. One who says that 10 million aśvamedha sacrifices are equal to the chanting of the holy name of Lord Kṛṣṇa is undoubtedly an atheist. He is sure to be punished by Yamarāja. Umaganātamidandasya gananjana salakaya Chaksulan militam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svaya Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapatandikam Panchakopa Turubhischa Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I think I can end class here. We've all chanted. What more can I say? I remember when I first came, it was just the other day, it was April 23rd. Was the first day I saw devotees in the park chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. My friend and I had gone there together. We were going to university together. We knew each other just for a few months, and we were both searching for God. I had become somewhat depressed, and I didn't know why, but I wanted answers. And I was raised in the city, big city, Philadelphia, Catholic boy, a Roman Catholic boy, Italian ancestry, so they're all Catholics, the Pope is Italian, everybody was. When I was in 8th grade, that's the end of grade school, 8th grade in the U.S., so at the last day of school, the priest would come, big priest would come, and he would hand you your report card. So we were all lined up, and as everyone was getting their report card, he was asking them, what do you want to do when you grow up? So I had a little time to think about it. 13 years old. What do you know about what you want to do when you grow up, And in the USA, most people wanted to be either doctors, firemen, policemen, things like that. So then he came to me and he handed me my report card. He said, so what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I want to be the Pope. I thought because I knew the Pope was in Rome, Italy, he was an Italian guy, so I thought I wanted to be the Pope. I did much better than that. I became servant of Srila Prabhupada, so as all of you. So, but at the time I was thinking like that. I was a nice boy then. Then, of course, I got older when I was in college, and I couldn't understand why I was doing anything. And I had a nice setup. I had a scholarship in college. I had a vehicle to drive there every day. And it just happened one day. All of a sudden, I thought, this world is just a horrible place. Nothing makes me happy. So I looked here and there. I started reading the Bible. I had no teacher, of course. I was just reading, and I couldn't make any sense or find any information, any philosophy. And then I went to some born-again Christian churches. Born-again Christian in the U.S., mainly they're in the southern states, and mostly black African-American people. And they're more on they like subtle things. So I went to some of these because I knew they used to chant and dance. And they looked like they went into ecstasy. They would speak in tongues, it's called, where somebody would become overwhelmed and just start saying these words. You didn't even know what they were saying. They called speaking in tongues from the Holy Spirit. Paramatma, they called it the Holy Spirit in Catholic religion. But nothing worked. I didn't connect. But I wanted to feel God. I didn't want to just know about Him. I wanted to experience Him. I wanted Him to come and save me. So then it was April 23rd, 1971. It was Earth Day. Earth Day, April 23rd every year. April 22nd. And this was the second Earth Day. So my friend and I went to the park where bands were playing rock music and stuff, and people, of course, are doing intoxication and all. So we're sitting there, and up on this plateau, there was this group of Hare Kṛṣṇas, and mostly they were dressed in yellow kurta, yellow dhotis, yellow saris, all from the same bolt of cloth you would buy at the cloth shop, polyester, plastic, never wrinkled. And they all had tilak, Fuller's Earth. Even Prabhupada talks about Fuller's Earth. I just read it in one of his letters yesterday, telling him how to clean the deities. He said a little lemon in Fuller's Earth. Basically, it's like chandan. It's just very, very soft soil. And that would stay on. It was like plaster. So they put it on in the morning. You never had to put tilak on the rest of the day. It would like paint on your forehead. So anyway, they were chanting. And it was the first time I heard chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa. And my friend, he had met them before, although he never told me. He said, let's go see them. And of course, I didn't want to see them because they looked like crazy people. They are. Usually Hare Kṛṣṇas are crazy people, you know. Anyway, he literally kept telling me, come on, let's go see them. They're nice people. Let's go see them. So we went. And I wanted to know about God. And of course, the big book then was Krishna book, volume 1. And they told me everything. They told me God's name, He's Krishna. They told me where He lives, who His mother is, who His father is, everything about Krishna. One talking to me had been living in the temple just for a few months, but he was already preaching to me, convincing me about Krishna consciousness. But the chanting was there. In those early days, that was the activity all the time, it's chanting. Prabhupada said here in the Purport, he talks about that, how not like food, feeding people. He always said, even when we feed people, just like, you know, in Gainesville, Florida, they've had the food distribution, prasadam distribution, since Prabhupada was here, for almost 50 years at this one university, big university in Florida. And they still do it to this day, distribute very nice prasadam. But Prabhupada said the kirtan also must be there. They should know they're getting prasadam. He said the same thing with our Govinda's restaurant. They should know they're eating prasadam, not ordinary food. And he would say, everyone is poor. We don't just distribute food to materially poor people. We distribute prasadam because everyone is poor. Doesn't matter how much money you have, how many square feet your house is. Everyone is poor without Krishna. So we would always advise us on how to do things properly, how to give Krishna with the prasadam. For 1 week, when I met those devotees, I was already convinced. First day, first 5 minutes, I was convinced. Everything they said, I accepted. And both of us, my friend and I, had a little motorcycle. We would go to school in the day, and in the evening we would go to the temple and hear Bhagavad Gita class. Well, first Bhagavad Gita class I heard was by Daivi Shakti Mataji. She was there at Philadelphia Temple at that time. So that was the first class. We started going every day for a week. We're chanting, hear class, and take prasadam. Prasadam I didn't understand. They had upma. I thought, it's mushy vegetables in this mushy substance. I didn't. Then sweet rice was so sweet. Like my teeth hurt, it was so sweet. So prasadam wasn't something I understood a lot. But I accepted immediately going to the temples. You walked into the temple in Philadelphia, you would smell the incense, and you would smell the chant, the chances, the spices that they were putting in ghee, they were roasting in the ghee. One other smell you could smell ghee being made. This was one of the other things. It was very big in the temple, and everywhere we were making ghee. They had no money, but somehow we had money for ghee. Ghee for the deities, ghee for the devotees. Everyone was eating from ghee. So then, of course, it was 3 months later when I first saw Srila Prabhupada. And when you see him in the temple room, of course, he's either giving class or kirtan is going on. And from the very beginning, I saw how much Prabhupada enjoyed seeing the devotees chanting in kirtan. It was always great happiness for him. You know, you saw Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana. He could just move his head. We would dance with his head. He didn't have to he could look at you, make you dance, just by, everybody would go with his head, they'd start jumping up and down, chanting. So that 1 week where I was still at home, I remember going up to all my close friends, which were just a few, telling them, chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, you have to chant this mantra. I didn't know anything. I knew that much. That's all you have to know. I remember so striking Kadamba Kanana's program last month, when Prabhupada said, chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, preach Hare Kṛṣṇa. It's not complicated. And I would tell, it's funny, I had 2 friends. They both died in their 20s. My father died, I was 3 years old. Every man in my life seemed to have died. My godfather died when I was 5 years old. Somehow or other, Krishna arranged. The first really male influence in my life was Srila Prabhupada. He was my father in every way. But I saw how much Prabhupada liked to see us just chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. Everything else we do is to facilitate that. So important. Everything is right there. In 1973, it was the summer of 1973, so now I've been with Prabhupada almost 1 year. And he came back to America from India. Remember when Prabhupada chanted just like the evening aratik? We had a tune, the melody Srila Prabhupada gave us, huh? It was slow. That was halftime. Kiba Jaya, Jaya Gora Chander. This is what we did everywhere. We followed how Prabhupada did it. We did what Prabhupada did. Then I remember going to Mayapur in the spring of 1973. And there was a whole different way. The chanting was going on. Much faster. Chutananda, Dinanath Prabhu, so many devotees. And Prabhupada, sitting on the Vyasasana, always happy to see the devotees chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. However they were chanting, he was happy that we were chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. When I came back in '73 to Los Angeles with Brahmananda after being in Mayapur, we know Brahmananda Prabhu. He was the very first person to dance in front of Srila Prabhupada at Kirtan. He tells that. He's told us that. And once he started, he thought you weren't allowed to stop. Prabhupada's Kirtans were 3 hours in Tompkins Square Park. Once they lifted their hands, him and a few others, they just kept dancing and dancing and dancing, going around in a circle. But now it was 1973. How many years later? 7 years later. I had been in the temple just 2 years. Brahmananda had been 7 years in the temple. So we learned to dance a little differently in Mayapur. We started going back and forth. We never did this before. We all stood there with our hands raised like Srila Prabhupada did, like we always saw Prabhupada dance. But now in Mayapur, we learned different ways of chanting, different ways of dancing. So then we're in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada's sitting in the Vyasasana, and Kirtan's going on. And I was right here, and Brahmananda was right there. And the deities, Rukmini, Dwarkadish, were up there. So there was always that separation. Women were on one side, men were on the other side. In the back, there were all men around Prabhupada. So we're dancing and chanting, and Brahmananda looked at me, and he wanted to start going up and down from the back of the temple room to the front of the temple room. I said, yes. So we had to move people because everybody was standing in place, chanting and looking at Prabhupada and chanting. But gradually, the whole temple was dancing back and forth, taking 3 steps this way, 3 steps this way. And everybody, of course, Prabhupada's there. There's chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. And then there's chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa when Prabhupada's in your presence. What can you say? Just seeing him made you dance. Just seeing his smile put you in ecstasy. Seeing that smile, his happiness, seeing all these Westerners, he's turned into Hare Krishnas. All they do is chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. When reporters would come up, they would be so frustrated, reporters. You people, you don't work. Prabhupada said, why should we work? Sometimes he would say, we're distributing books, we sell our books. And other times he would say, why should we work? We're chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. Why does one want to work? He said, we just chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. Krishna's providing everything for everyone. Why should we work? Back and forth, we're dancing. And then later, in the morning after his class, we're upstairs, and Pradyumna came in the room. You heard about Pradyumna, Panditji. Prabhupada, you saw in that kirtan, the devotees move back and forth in the temple room. Is that all right? Prabhupada said, yes, very nice. Then it became bona fide. Then there was other kinds of dancing that came in. It didn't seem so bona fide, crazy things, people spinning around, doing so many things. Prabhupada said, where has this come from? And then he said, it was Hari Sahib, is it okay, Prabhupada, we dance like that? He said, when one is in ecstasy, whatever they do, that is okay if they're in ecstasy. He said, things will happen, but it shouldn't be artificial. That ecstasy should not be artificial just to make a show, just to get some attention. One day he called me into his room, same time in New Dwarka. New Dwarka for me was a very wonderful place. For some reason in New Dwarka, Prabhupada, many afternoons he would call me in just to tell me one little thing. He would just say one thing to me, and then he would just go about his business. So this day he called me in his room, and he was walking around in his bedroom chanting. That's what I saw with Srila Prabhupada, chanting, any spare minute, chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, hand in his bead bag, chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. We were at the Gurukula, Panchagoda, myself, the other evening, Saturday evening, I think it was. A few hundred of them, children from 5 years old to 16, 17, huh? And they were all chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, a very wonderful kirtan. And they were dancing and chanting, and everyone. And I thought, what a wonderful process it is. You could see they were all in ecstasy, chanting, natural. Everyone wants to be happy. But Prabhupada called me in his room. He said, my disciples, we're all Westerners. He said, my disciples, he said, if not for the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa, he said, they couldn't do anything. He said, so much intoxication, illicit sex. He said, but for the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa, he said, they couldn't accomplish anything. This was because of Juhu. At the time, it was the Juhu property was, again, under pressure, losing that property where he put Radharasa Bahari. So he was very concerned. And we were, it's funny, in the U.S., I think they're very expert. And Prabhupada would say, Americans are expert. They can make money. That candle in Prabhupada's room, it's in his bedroom now. It's a candle we made in Hawaii. We used to make these candles, carved candles, made thousands and thousands of dollars selling these silly carved candles. I brought one to Prabhupada, 1977, showed him what we were doing. He said, you Americans, he said, you can make money so easy, so quick. But I saw what Prabhupada said. We were young, of course, but not very sophisticated, not very mature in our thinking how to do things. Prabhupada, he would see through everything and everyone. He would know a cheater was in front of him as soon as he saw them. Don't even need to open their mouths. But for the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa, he said, you couldn't do anything. But I thought he was being very kind, very compassionate. But it was only because of his chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa. Was Prabhupada still doing everything? And this is the essence of our philosophy, our understanding. Everything we're able to do only by the mercy, by the grace of the spiritual master. To think we have any qualification, that's Maya. I can do this. I'm very expert. And then he said, None of my disciples believe Krishna is God. Imagine such a statement, huh? None of my disciples believe, he said, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, they had faith. But all our faith was based on Srila Prabhupada. I had someone just wrote me the other day, I have my doubts. He even said I have my doubts about Srila Prabhupada. I just said, well, you're talking to the wrong person, I said. I was with him 2.5 years. One thing I don't have any doubts about is Srila Prabhupada, what he's given us. We might see so many things within our society, Prabhupada's ISKCON society, difficulties here, difficulties there. And I always say they're not new. They were here when Prabhupada was here. We had a faction, a splinter group, they say, a splinter group. Now we say there's so many, we can call them factions, splinter groups, this mutt, that mutt, this person, that person. People go here, go there. They come to ISKCON, and no, we'll go somewhere else. Better, higher. But these things were going on when Prabhupada was here. One devotee he separated. And the first thing Prabhupada did was tell him, you travel with me. So he could show them what Krishna consciousness was. He didn't stop them. But if you're going to present the philosophy proper. This particular devotee, he had written one book. He wrote a book. It was called Jesus Loves Kṛṣṇa. Krishna Loves Jesus. And he gave it to Prabhupada. It was way back, 1975. He gave the book to Prabhupada. Prabhupada looked at it a little bit. He said, where do you mention one should not eat meat? So first thing he said, that Jesus loves Krishna, Krishna loves Jesus. Yeah, but what does that have to do with you eating meat? He said, where do you say anything about these Christians killing the cow? Prabhupada gave us everything in the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra. But to be able to appreciate it, to be able to hear, chant nicely, there's so many things to understand. That's why we say, I get hit all the time, if you say anything, you should do like this, you should do like that. No hard and fast rules, chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. This whole verse, what's it mention? The 8th offense in chanting. I told you, I came to India, we went to go to different life members' houses. I'm not going to tell that story. Go to different life members' houses, and they would always bring you to their altar room. But they didn't mean they have every deity they could collect, just like you go to the bazaar. They had Lord Shiva, they had Kali Ma, everyone. Krishna, Ram, Lord Jesus. Just in case. They're all thinking everything, it's all the same. I just have to pick one of these. Everything will be all right. No, everything. Every path is going different places. Not every path goes to the same place. That's what they say, all paths lead to God. No, all paths don't lead to God. This isn't what Prabhupada showed us. But he loved seeing his disciples chanting. Everything he did was to bring everyone in the world to this point chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra. One day he rang his bell again. I think he felt a lot of compassion on me in New Dwarka. And I went into the room, and he's standing, he's looking out his window to the karate. Outside his window, there was this karate school. All day long. Hut, 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 you would hear all through the day, right outside Prabhupada's room. But because it couldn't be stopped, he just accepted it. If he heard a noise like that and it could be stopped, he'd get every devotee possible to find that noise. But once it was there, he just accepted. Hut, hut. It was karate school. He called me in. He said, ultimately, you have to fly your own airplane. He told me that personally. Told me, ultimately, you have to fly your own airplane, he said. That's all he said. I wrote in my book, I want Prabhupada co-pilot. He has to be co-pilot on the airplane. How can we survive without Srila Prabhupada's guidance? But he said like that, ultimately you have to fly your own airplane. Then a few days later he called me in his room. It's always the same. I hear the bell ring. I was with Panchagoda. We should put his picture there on his chair there, you know. Such a person. I never say anything nice to Panchagoda. He gets upset because I always say he chastises me all the time. Even yesterday I mentioned how he always chastises me. He said I was talking too close into the microphone. I said, you chastise me, I said, in one day more than Prabhupada did in my whole life. We get all upset. But he carries this temple every morning. From Prabhupada's Mangal Arti, he's there every morning. And then it goes on through the whole morning program. This is the very foundation of our Krishna consciousness. To have such a person, your temple president, wonderful, wonderful thing, setting the example. That's what Prabhupada wanted, set the example. He sets a nice example. Everybody now, you're all going to have to step up. Now, fill in those sandals of his. We all have to step up and do more in this temple. So again, Prabhupada called me in the room. I offer obeisances and sit up. Looking back, when he did those things, I never realized he was talking to me. Even he was talking to me. I always felt he just wanted to say something, and I was the closest person that he could contact. So I went and offered obeisances. I sat up. He looked at me. He said, we're not so advanced that we think I want to come back life after life to do service. He said, we're not so advanced. He said, we should have the desire that we want to go back home, back to Godhead. That's the first thing. That's why we come. That's why I came. I wanted to go back home. I wanted to be with God. That's why I came. Who thinks of, I want to just serve your lotus feet life after life? That can come. It'd be very nice it comes. And we say like that. But actually, we want to go back home, back to Godhead. I leave in 1 month. I think 1 month to the day. Yeah, I'll be in Atlanta, Georgia. You all know Atlanta, Georgia in the USA. It's where Jayapataka Maharaj, he inaugurated the Panihati, thank you, the Panihati festival. It's been going on now for decades. They make hundreds of preparations with the rice, with the chipped rice, hundreds and hundreds. And they put them all in the clay pots. The pots are, some of the pots are this big, painted great detail just for that one day. So I've been there. I'm going this year. It'll be like my 4th or 5th time. I was there with Srila Prabhupada. That was a very famous, we've mentioned it a few times, one of a very famous 3-day trip Prabhupada took as he was traveling around the world. 2 months, 15 temples in 2 months he visited, starting in Juhu and then ending up in Mayapur. And everywhere he went from India, Juhu, he stopped in Japan, Los Angeles, Mexico City, Caracas, Venezuela, in South America. Then he went to Miami, USA. Then he went to Atlanta. Everywhere he went, he saw the result of pure chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa. Everywhere he went, in every temple, he saw hundreds of devotees jumping up and down, chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. He was in ecstasy all the time. We can say Prabhupada was always in ecstasy, but it leaked out. You know, he was very expert at controlling his emotions. But every time he sat on the Vyāsasan, he would look in front of him and he was seeing Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. And he said almost the same thing in each temple. He went to Mexico City, he went to Caracas, Venezuela. He said, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda have traveled so far to be with you. Prabhupada, who traveled, he carried Lord Chaitanya there, everywhere in the world. But he saw this chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa. We always talk about distributing Prabhupada's books, most important. Because he said these books, all these books are to bring you to the point to chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. That's the most important thing. Nothing better, as it's described very elaborately here in this verse and purport. Everything, so we chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. And Prabhupada saw that. People all over the world, different cultures, different countries, all doing the same thing. Prabhupada would say the real united nations. Only way you can unite the nations. And he had done that. And then when he went to Atlanta, they have beautiful Gaura deities, much like our deities here, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. Very, very wonderful. And Prabhupada saw them. And he said, he told everyone, we've traveled here. He looked at me, he said, we've gone to Mexico City, he said, Caracas, Miami. He said, Miami. And then he said, now we're here. He said, and I think your temple is the best. Because it was very nice. Temple room was about as big as this area. And they had Gaura, Radha Krishna, beautiful, beautiful deities. And that's when Prabhupada gave his 2-minute class. He was so overwhelmed, his ecstasy, from seeing everyone chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa and understanding the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. He would say, he said they're so merciful, these two lords. It's when he chanted Parama Karuna, first time. No one had any idea. He said everyone knows Parama, everyone says yes, but no one knew anything. But we all said yes. And then Prabhupada, no one could play the drum because it was, so no one could follow. So then he grabbed the drum. Then we went in more ecstasy. Prabhupada chanting on the Vyāsasan, ecstasy. Playing cartels, ecstasy. Playing his gong, more ecstasy. But if you saw him with the mridanga on his lap, that was most ecstasy. Prabhupada would play the mridanga. And then he told us, learn it. He said, we'll do it again tomorrow. He said, you practice, learn. But he couldn't speak. He stopped speaking. He said, they're so merciful. He said, Krishna is merciful, but you have to surrender. Sarvadharman Prityaja. He said, but Lord Chaitanya doesn't even require, he's distributing love of Godhead through the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa to everyone freely. And then he just choked up, tears in his eyes. He closed his eyes. And we all sat there and waited. Then he opened his eyes. But he did it in 5 temples on that trip. Same thing. I don't know. My feeling was he was in so much ecstasy seeing 10 years of his efforts traveling everywhere, anywhere and everywhere, traveling, giving the Maha Mantra out. And he saw that it happened. And then there's one special room in Atlanta. There was at that time Prabhupada's quarters. Even he was there 3 days, they had Prabhupada's quarters. You have to. So we went up. In the evening time, somebody asked me, they ask me all the time, best thing to be with Prabhupada. Everything is best. Like Prabhupada said, Krishna like a sweet ball. Everywhere is sweet. To be with Prabhupada, everything was sweet. But best time was that night time in his bedroom, because nobody else went into Prabhupada's bedroom. Only the servant to give massage. As Prabhupada sometimes lie down, sometimes sit up, and just dry. And sometimes he would talk. So that same night, we go upstairs and I'm just massaging his legs, and Prabhupada was looking at the painting. Krishna and Balaram. It's like over here. Krishna and Balaram and lots of calves. So I didn't think anything. I'm just massaging, and for the second time, first time I met Prabhupada in his garden in Los Angeles, and they gave me the Krishna book. And we, 5 of us, sitting there, offered obeisance, sat up, and I'm holding the Krishna book. And Prabhupada looked at me. This was May 1972. And he said, I like the cowherd boys very much. And then he said, read a story. So I read a story. So this was 3 years later. 3 years had gone by since that time. It was March 1975. I'm massaging Prabhupada in his room, and there's no lights on, but there's some light in the room. And he's looking at that painting on the other side, the other wall from where he's sitting. And I'm massaging. And he said, I like the cowherd boys very much. And I'm just, as soon as he starts talking, you know something's going to happen. And then he started describing the story that he's looking at in the painting. And he said every day, Krishna Balaram would go into the forest and herd the calves. He said they were still young boys, 7, 8 years old. So they would herd the calves, he said. And all the cowherd boys would come. He said, and their mothers, of course, they would stay out there all day, so their mothers had to give them a tiffin with the prasadam. He said, so all the cowherd boys, they had their prasadam. Krishna Balaram had their prasadam. Of course, Krishna's prasadam was very wonderful. He said, kachori, ladu, halava, and the cowherd boys, rice, dal, like that. So he said when lunchtime came, the cowherd boys, they'd steal Krishna's tiffin, and they'd start hide. We do this, we all did this as young kids. Find the one little scrawny kid and take something from him and keep it away. He said that's what they did. They would take Krishna's tiffin and pass it here, pass it here. He said then finally they'd sit down and they had Krishna's tiffin, kachori, ladu, halava. He said in Krishna he had one of their tiffins, with the rice. And all time I'm massaging him. Now, I'm not just listening to it, I'm doing service, my service. And then he just looked at me. He said, I just want to go back home and eat kachori and ladu with Krishna. So this is our desire. Who are we? Have any other desire? This is why we're here. This is chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. Can bring you to this very final moment. And we do all have to fly our own airplanes. We see that time and time again. Sometimes here in Vrindavan we get to see it very often, people leaving. Sometimes you don't see them for 1-2 days, and you go in their room, find out they left. God brother has left, this God brother has left. Happened a few times. Other times, it takes a long time. People are there chanting. You all know, some of you have heard the story about the young girl went into Prabhupada's room. She was dying, went in with her mother, 13 years old. So they went into Prabhupada, so Prabhupada would, like I would say, compassionate. Prabhupada said, everyone's going to die. Said that to a 13-year-old girl and her mother. Everyone's going to die today or tomorrow. We're all going to die. What should we do, Prabhupada? Chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. He said, just chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. He said, this is your business. How fortunate you are to know any moment I could be gone. He actually settled them down. He comforted them by making them understand everything is okay. He said, you just chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. So this is our business, chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. And I don't do it generally, but I say, one thing Panchagoda does, he gets us all, if we're not there with him in the morning chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa, he'll let you know, right? He'll let us know. This is our business. Prabhupada said, everything comes from chanting. Management, he said, comes from the chanting. He said, you chant nicely, management will follow. And not separate endeavor. So I see it's already time. We have a moment for 1 or 2 questions. Anyone has any questions? Karbajan Prabhu.
You want to go back home, back to work?
Yes.
So everyone want to go, or someone want to stay here?
That's why we came here, because we don't want to stay here. Do you want to stay here? No, I don't want to stay here. I stay here, but this is a spiritual world. Wherever the chanting is also. Both things are there simultaneously. Different emotions are there. We know Prabhupada's always preaching. His business is to see everyone in the whole world, the whole universe chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. But we still want to go back home, back to Godhead. And both can be done. You just have to qualify yourself. But no, I don't want to come back to this. I had enough experience. Not a nice place. That's what, right? Is do your business and get out. And that's why we're here. I always think how fortunate, I can never say it enough, to be here. I say I never imagined in my whole life that I would be living in Vrindavan at this point in my life. I didn't even have a desire for it to happen, but somehow I'm here, and I pray every day that I get to remain here amongst all you wonderful devotees. Yeah. Prabhupada said there'll be an ISKCON in the spiritual world. Everyone, he said, all of us will all be there in ISKCON in the spiritual world, except for Mr. Nair. He's cursed for a very, 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 very long time. He's been cursed. Mataji. What is the difference between setting an example?
Just want to show off. Setting an example or just showing off?
Realization. we only show off if we think we're something special. When you realize everybody is special, then you realize you're not any more special than anyone else. Everything comes from realization. But even we would say, we have an expression in, we used to say this in the temple. You fake it until you make it. Yes, we're on with the show. As Prabhupada told Gargamuni, why should I bow down, Gargamuni said. Prabhupada said, you bow down and gradually you'll understand why. So we just keep chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa under any condition, chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. Over the years, I've seen different God brothers, and sometimes if they feel fallen, they're not following principles, they say, so I'm not qualified to chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. But that's never true. Under any condition, one should always chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. Even if you're the most abominable person, you chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. Because that's the cure for everything. For all diseases, that's the one universal cure, is chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. So he may be doing it to show off. Krishna has a way of dealing with pride. Yeah. And if pride is there, as we say again, pride cometh before the fall, right? As it says in the Bible. Pride always leads to fall down, of some sort or another. But for us, we can just see, oh, very nice, he's chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. Like Prabhupada when he saw Allen Ginsberg chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa and chanting Om, just happy he's chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. So our business is always to look inside, to cure our own disease. But it's not difficult to see when these things are there, but still they're rightly situated. That's what Prabhupada would say. They're rightly situated no matter what. Huh? Everyone here trying to do some service. So even if their motives are not pure, gradually they'll become purified by chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. When in the West, he went to different airports. One airport was called O'Hare. It's Irish name, O'Hara. And Prabhupada said, go to the manager, the owner, and tell him to make it O'Hare. And he was serious. He would say these, and we would think, he wasn't just saying it. He would be serious. He said, go tell him, make it a Hare airport, like that. So he would do like that. We have things, what is it called? Different names you would have, like the Laundry Rama. What are called the things, Shaparama. And he would say, just that Rama in the word. They just say that word, they're getting purified because the name Rama was in there. The power of the holy name. So it's that powerful. Whatever anyone is doing, their future is very bright. Prabhupada say, future is bright. Anything else? Gopish Prabhu. We're all going to pray. He wants to become a resident here, permanent resident in Vrindavan, from New Vrindavan. He has some services there, but we're going to try to get him to spend more time here in Vrindavan.
So the verse, so we understand one chants Hare Kṛṣṇa even once, they will never see the court of Yamarāja. Is that correct?
Never
See the court of Yamarāja. Is this correct?
As far as I know. Yes, it's so powerful. The chanting even once save one from the greatest danger. That's the greatest danger, is to fall down again into animal kingdom.
So in the verse it says that one who thinks that the chanting, or who says that the chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa is equal to 1,000,000 aśvamedha is certainly an atheist.
Not equal to, yeah.
He's certainly an atheist and is going to the court of Yamarāja, should be judged by which is, so he's chanted Hare Kṛṣṇa to make his point that it's equal to 1,000,000 aśvamedha jayas. So
Dilemma.
it seems a little contradictory.
Dilemma. That's what I say. We say there's no rules and regulations until there are. So these things are there. So we say these things just to get people to chant. And you've been on, I remember way back when in Pittsburgh, 1971, chanting on the streets, and people would walk by. Some of them would literally cover their ears. They were so demoniac, they couldn't even hear the holy name. They were prevented from even hearing it. So they would walk, you could see their faces. You know, it's said like, we have rakshasas, you know, they eat. Prabhupada said they eat humans, they eat babies. They are here in this world. We would think, no, that's not possible. Now we think, yeah, it's possible. Drink their blood, all kinds of things are going on. And they have other forms that we don't see, these demoniac forms. But sometimes you could almost see those demoniac forms when you were out on Hari Nāma. You'd see their faces. Demoniac people. And the other people you'd see, innocent people, they'd be happy. They didn't know why, they'd see us bright-faced, right? In the news, we were always called bright-faced. Oh, such a wonderful thing, because we were chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. We were helping Srila Prabhupada. So our fate is very good. It was I always tell, it was in Hawaii on a morning walk when Prabhupada said, if a devotee doesn't complete it, he said, us. If we don't complete our business, he said, then you come back, take nice birth, nice family, nice wealthy or pious family in India, he said, and you continue. So myself, Paramahamsa and Nitai, we got very upset because Prabhupada said we'd have to take birth in India. We didn't want to take birth in India. You don't know what India was like 1970. It was not a fun place. Sick. Everyone's sick all the time. So he said that. And we're thinking, all this effort, we've got to come and take birth in India? So then Prabhupada gets in the car. He's sitting in the front seat next to the driver. And the three of us are in the back seat. See, the three stooges, we're all in the back seat. And they're all, Sruta, you got to ask Prabhupada. They were upset. We're going to take birth in India next life. We knew we weren't going to be finished our business in this life. That's take birth in Mumbai, you know, or some village somewhere. So they said, ask Prabhupada, do we have to take birth in India? And I was the senior. So finally I asked Prabhupada. I said, Prabhupada, in the morning walk, you said we don't complete our business. Take birth in pious family in India, wealthy family, very wealthy family. And Prabhupada said, yes. I said, but does it have to be India? He said, no. He said, now we have centers all over the world. We have devotees. Anywhere, he said, one take birth in a devotee family. Went, thank you, Prabhupada. Well, take birth in a nice, wealthy family. But now there is no nice place. Now I don't want to take birth in America. I've changed. I actually would want to come here, take birth in a nice, pious family of devotees. Somewhere. I should be so fortunate. So, yes, that's what we do. We chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. In any condition, no matter how advanced, how fallen, how show-off you are, we chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. And that's the cure for this material disease. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Kṛṣṇa.